There we go. All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome. Um, I'm Julie Savinsky with Warwick's, and we have with us on screen Michael Barnard with Rakestraw Books. We actually have four bookstores that are presenting this to you today. It's Warwick's that's located in San Diego, Michael with Rakestraw that's located in Danville, Book Passage in Corte Madera in San Francisco, and Pages, a bookstore in Manhattan Beach. And Ben, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having
We
me.
we were talking in the green room a little bit that your book has just exploded in the indie market. We just all over, but the indies especially just absolutely adore this book. And so I will be putting into the chat how to order Ben's book. And John, welcome, John. Thank you so much for doing this conversation.
My pleasure.
Yeah, just can't wait for this. It's going to be an excellent conversation. So I'll be putting in the chat. I'm doing a little bit of housekeeping and then I'll turn it over to Michael to introduce the program. Um, I'll put in the chat how to order the books, both John's and Ben's book, from each of our bookstores. So if you are in the United States, we would love for you to order from us. Michael, I'm not sure if you ship to the UK. We actually don't. But if you're joining us from wherever, we would appreciate if you did order from one of our stores, but we also want you to support your local independent bookstore too. So there is that. Um, John and Ben are going to chat for about 30 minutes-ish. And then there's a Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. We're going to open it up for questions from you. Go ahead and pop those into the Q&A button. The chat is open as well. Appreciate if you put it in the Q&A button. It makes life easier for me. But either way is fine. So I'm going to turn it over to Michael now, who's going to introduce this, and let's going to be a great conversation. Thank you all.
Good morning. I'm thrilled to have the introduction and not the housekeeping. Start with John. John is most recently the author of I See You've Called In Dead, which is just published in paperback in the US from Zibby Books. He's a New York Times bestselling author. Unusually, he is a New York Times bestselling poet, which one sees rather less often. He has won the Thurber Prize for Best Contribution to American Humor. And he is smart and funny, which is why he's here today. And he is in conversation with Ben Reeves. Ben Reeves' debut novel, Everything Was Beautiful and Nothing Hurt, published just over 2 weeks ago in the US from Atria Books, which is part of Simon and Schuster. So thank you to them for bringing him to us. It has already become the #1 pick for the independent booksellers, #1 Indie Next pick for July. It just debuted on the New York Times list. And it is a book at the Month Club selection. So it's getting everything. It is the best first novel I've read all year. I have said over and over again, I cried at the end of the first chapter. I sobbed at the end of the book. It's fantastic. And we're thrilled that they're here today. Thank you, all of you, for joining us. And thank you for your support of all of us, all of the independent bookstores and our programming. And over to Ben and John.
Michael and Julie, thank you for that. And thank you for all of you who are listening. Uh, I was sent a galley of this book a couple of months ago, and I was saying to Ben before we got on this call, I'm fortunate I get a bunch of galleys. Like Michael, really from the opening pages, I was so taken by it. It's a high wire act. Um, we're going to chat for 30 minutes. I'm going to ask some questions, and then we want to hear from you. But I wanted to start. I came across on I think it's Ben's website, sort of it's almost like an artist statement, and I'd like to read it because I think it's sort of the bedrock for what we're going to talk about. So I'm quoting Ben here, and he says. Literature is one of the most transformative outlets we have to share an experience from one human mind to another, across time and space, to lose yourself in another person's life for a few hours. People say the novel is dead. They've been saying that for decades. I believe we've barely scratched the surface. To build emotion through words alone Sorry, I believe there are new and interesting ways to tell stories, to frame a narrative, and to build emotion through words alone. Often these kinds of stories will feel peculiar, rebellious, even uncomfortable because of their newness. Something Sometimes they'll fall altogether, but this is what excites me most, the idea of trying something new and failing rather than playing it safe and succeeding. Everything was beautiful, um, dips its toes into some unusual things. I'd like to go further. In fact, I can't help myself but to go further, even if I never publish another book. I'm driven by this belief that the novel, as an art form, is only just getting started. So that's who I am, I suppose. Also, be kind to people, and remember, you're going to die. I love that. It is so anathema to what is at writer's pages. And I think it gets to the essence of the book. I was hoping you might start by talking about the genesis of the book and perhaps a little about your own background. What brought you to this place?
Of course, yeah, and thank you for that. I remember writing that, and that is kind of my manifesto. I try and keep
Yeah.
that in my mind at all times. Particularly the bit about, taking risks and like if it doesn't work, that's fine. I'd rather try something new. So with this particular book, I knew that I wanted to tell a story about death, but I wanted it to be more about life than about death, really. But it's a nice lens to view life through. So I thought, well, what better way to do it than through literally the personification of death as a person. And then from there, I sort of started thinking, well, okay, if I'm going to tell a story from the point of view of death, what does that mean? Who is he? Who's he going to be? What's my version of the Grim Reaper, And and I thought he would be someone who's very, very in tune with the world around us, with nature, someone who picks up on the intricacies of life that we might miss. I wanted him to be very connected to everything. And through that, he's just a part of almost the natural cycle of things, and he's quite mysterious. We never really know how he works or how he decides who lives and dies and things like that. And from there, it just progressed naturally because I was like, well, okay, so I've got that. I know who he is. What's his story going to be? I can't just have him throughout the story. He spends time with people before they die, but it can't just be that over and over and again. It needs some kind of narrative arc, right? So then it was a case of, okay, what would I've set up this guy and I know who he is. What would his arc be? And quite naturally, it came to me that if he is this person, if he is death, I think he would be someone who's quite solitary because he's not going to want to make lots of relationships because he knows that every single person he meets is going to die. So he would have that distance. So the natural friction, I guess, the natural conflict would be that he meets these people in his life that he just can't help but be involved with. He just, against his better judgment, he just falls in love with this little family who live across the hall. And that's really our arc because he knows that he shouldn't get involved, but he just can't help it. He just is enamored by this little family. And from there it sort of unfolds because even this little family that he's fallen in love with, one day they're gonna die. And is he gonna he never tries to stop anyone from dying. So what's gonna happen with this little family then? Because they are going to die one day. And that the tension and the sort of the conflict came quite naturally out of that. So it was a real gift. When you just get it and you're like, yes, okay, this is great, and you almost just sink into it. Then you're like, right, I'm just gonna have fun with this now. I'm just gonna see how far I can push it. Um, yeah, it's a really some novels are really difficult to write, as you know, and some just come a bit easier. And this one was it was still hard, but it was easier than some.
Um, if it's okay to ask, have you experienced much death in your life? And I ask because death is a part of many stories, but this is a different animal, and
Yeah.
I'm just curious if what your relationship to it is.
So I think people are normally a little bit disappointed when it's like when I say, "Oh, I've never lost a son or a daughter. I've never." There's certain things that I haven't experienced, but I've lost all of my grandparents. Um, my wife has lost all of her grandparents. We saw all of those go. Um, I've always had a real sense, a real visceral sense of time running out, um, and feeling grief and real intense nostalgia for for everyday life. So because I've got two kids, I very much see them getting older. I can see the passage of time. I can literally see it, and I can see them getting older. And I think about these things like one day I'm going to die, one day they're going to die, and I wanted to explore that and express that. And I suppose, and I've told this story a couple of times, but what a sort of formative moment was when my little boy, Eli, he nearly choked. Well, he did choke, but so we were just in the living room. He came in. I think he was eating crisps or something, and he was clearly choking. And we are like, oh God, right, okay, let's figure this out. You know, you've got to act quick because he can't breathe. That moment, and luckily my wife's very practical. She hooked her finger in his throat and got it out quite quickly. But it seemed to it seemed to last so long, and in that moment, I saw an alternate timeline where things turned really bad, and I was so grateful to be on the good timeline where it didn't happen. And I broke down. It was a few years ago, but I just completely it opened my eyes in a very strange way, and in the weirdest way, I was grateful that I could then see things very clearly. And it was shortly after that I started writing the book.
I had a similar, almost the exact same experience. I have a 17-year-old and a 14-year-old, but my daughter was maybe a year and a half, two, and she was eating, my wife was at work, and I had gotten home early, and we were sitting on the kitchen floor, and she's eating peaches, but they're sort of a little viscous. There's that sort of stringy bit, and she started choking. And I had taken a class as a overbearing parent and it wasn't working.
Yeah.
And my wife came home and hammered her back and boom. And I'm sitting there holding my daughter like it it really you do in the sort of Travis world see these alternate ways and it it's terrifying. Travis hears a refrain from people he visits. As I said, I'm on vacation. I don't have the book in front of me, so forgive me if I get the phrase wrong. But when he does visit people, they say the same thing. They say, Travis, they say they're surprised. And Travis always says, they're always surprised. So it reminded me, because I use in my book an epigraph from Virginia Woolf, and I think I'm going to bastardize it, but I think it's something to the effect that uh, people have to die in order to make life important. And yet, our relationship with death, this thing we know is coming, there's this cognitive dissonance, I think, at least there is for me, that I have time, right? There's that wonderful quote from the Mahabharata. A wise person is asked, what's the greatest wonder in the world? His answer is, the greatest wonder in the world is that every day people die, but the living act as if they have nothing but time.
I love
And
that. Yeah.
so, and so Travis is always just sort of like, you know what's going to happen. Why are you surprised? Talk
Mm.
a little bit about that because I have to say, I'm a lot older than you. There's still that distance from me. I'm closer to it now, but there's still that weird, it will happen.
Yeah. We don't like to think about it. Like there will
And
be
why
a
is
day.
that? Why is that? Because the Tibetan Book of Living and Dying says death is the greatest teacher in the world. What is it about the sort of Western thought that we don't immerse ourselves in it?
I think the simple answer is we just find it scary. You know, there's a sense of like if it's all going to end, what's the point? But the way I like to think about that is when you watch a film, you know the film is going to end, but you still watch the film and enjoy the film while it's happening. I think we're just scared, whereas, and I am scared as well, but that's why I like to confront it. You know, I thought about,
Yes.
have you ever seen there's a chart of how many weeks you've basically got to
Yes.
live?
Yeah, that's terrifying.
It's
Days,
terrifying.
days are a lot. The weeks,
The
what
weeks
is
are
it?
nothing.
Oh, it's terrible.
Yeah, I can't remember the number, but it's yeah, you see it laid out and it's nothing. It's just a
Yeah, it's a
tiny
blip.
amount of squares.
It's a blip.
Yeah, and I thought about maybe getting that tattooed on my arm or even just 52 dots,
Yeah.
because I
And just
want to
X
think
them
about
out
it.
each year.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Which is ridiculous, but I think I like to scratch that itch. I like to probe it because I think it can make every day a bit more precious. When you really consider the fact that this is going to end, the smallest inconveniences don't mean so much anymore.
Yeah.
Obviously, there are still huge problems that we all have in our everyday lives, but the little things fall away, and the little good things mean so much more because you're like, okay, well, this is, this is, I'm going to die, this is pretty good right now. Um, some cultures really embrace it. Some
They
cultures,
do.
they they talk about it, they celebrate it, and I'd like a bit more of that. I think I resonate with that more.
I think it's Tibetan Buddhists who say that to meditate on death 5 times a day is to live a happy life.
Yeah, I like that.
Right.
Yeah.
And then there's those, I believe it's Catholic nuns who practice memento mori, which is they think on death all day, which kind of a buzzkill at parties. But there is something to, and for those listening, I'd love to hear when we ask questions what you all think of it. But to me, and Michael echoed this, the irony of your book to me is it's not a book about death. The beauty of the book for me is it's a book about life and life affirming. And I think that's what's so counterintuitive and fresh about the book. Talk a little bit about that because, you know, talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, I knew that that was always the way I wanted it to be. I've written depressing books. I've written books that they're just flat out depressing. And I actually think that that kind of book has its place.
Yeah.
But I knew that for this one, I really wanted it to, even though it goes to some dark places, I wanted it to ultimately be a celebration of life. And I think to get that celebration, to get that payoff, I have to take you quite low. Otherwise, by contrast, I'm not actually lifting you up that much. I have to take you right down to then lift you up. I knew that, and some people that have maybe stopped reading like halfway through it, I think it's because they maybe can't see that light at the end of the tunnel. They don't know that it's maybe going to lead somewhere bittersweet at least. Um, I wanted, I really, I think we need a bit of that now. I think we need a bit of life affirmation because there are so many terrible things going on all the time.
Yeah. A comment just popped up, and I don't want to put you on the spot.
No, sure.
Someone asked if there was time for you to read. Is there something you'd like to read? A section that you read?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, let me go grab
Yeah.
one.
Well, have a go at that. Someone just
Yeah.
asked. Thank you for that question. I think it would be funny if he didn't come back.
Okay, let's have a look. I don't really do this very much, so let's let me try and think of something that sort of stands on its own. Um,
Um, I'm trying to think. I wish I had the book in front of me.
that's all right. Let me have a little look. I like the bit right. So this bit I think stands alone. This is a little sense of who Travis is. Uh, some nights when my head is loud, I wander the streets like I'm a stray cat, and I try to dampen the noise by humming. I'm inside everything, everyone, everywhere, between it and through it, every seed in every pod, every fragment of gravel, that blade of grass leaning against that blade of grass, and I squeeze my eyes shut and walk like that, fists clenched, the beauty of everything, the handprint on the window, the porch with the flickering light. I am tired and awake, and I think about the little family across the hall, the midwife and her girls, and I think about the rotten bodies stiffening, then loosening, bloating blue, their skin taut and papery, gums receding to reveal the longer teeth, the longer hair, the longer fingernails. And I can feel the man farting as his wife spoons him, and she calls him a smelly bugger but doesn't let it go. And how the baby, who at this very moment almost chokes on the tiny plastic shoe but doesn't, and no one notices, so nothing matters. Or the woman praying to God that her husband dies, or the vinyl record buried in the garden with all the little glass bottles, and the woman who dances after hours in the hall with the mirrored walls. No, no, hum, hum, hum. And I'll walk and walk until the sun screams over the rooftops, long shadows, and she brushes her teeth and spits in the toilet because the sink is blocked, and he measures his penis with his phone and then measures his phone, and I walk and walk and walk. The man with the brittle brown Christmas tree in his garden. He gives it one swift kick and all the needles shower to the grass, and he saws it up and throws it in the brown bin, and the girl makes herself sick and weighs herself again. Someone spilt white paint in the road. The swept up bird bones in the gutter, and the lads playing football on the green. A mattress propped against the paper birch. The mattress has been there for 3 weeks, sagging and weeping with rain, soaked up, swelling, collapsed like a lung, with black spots creeping from bottom to top, bottom to top. Once a warm place, once a sleepy, dreamy, dry place. A tire flat for so long, adopted its new shape, all sad and dry and cracked like lips. Roy backhands his wife in the kitchen, gravy smell, fumbling pans. She spits at his feet, locks the bathroom door, and calls her brother, who keeps a crowbar, in the car. And I am everywhere and always, and it never stops. It never gives me rest, not even for a second. I rub my eyes until the sparkles fill the black. There's too much. There's not enough. Take it away. Give me more.
Extraordinary. What page is that,
Oh
Ben?
shit, I've just closed it.
No, no worries. Someone asked a
Um,
question.
Sorry. So I should say it's not all like that, by the way. That's quite intense. That's
No,
quite
but you do that you do that a few times, those sort of run-ons. And I'm curious, was that one of those pieces of writing that came to you whole? Or did
yeah,
you it struck me in reading it that that was, those good days where it speaks to you?
yes. I live
That
for those
struck me as
days.
something that it you took dictation.
100%. If I could write a whole book like that, like people probably wouldn't want to read it, but I absolutely would.
No, but it was you were fully in his head, in his
Yeah,
voice. And I remember reading that and thinking, first of all, it's a remarkable piece of writing, but it's it's one of many moments in the book that it's you know when something's so beautiful, you cry. When you're so happy, you're sad, kind of thing.
yeah,
So you
yeah.
you touch that space a lot, I think, in your writing. Um, I want to talk a little about Dahlia. So the sort of two main characters in the book, and hopefully everyone's read it, and if you haven't, please do immediately. Uh, but talk about Dahlia because I think uh, you paint a really tender. I think if I hadn't seen a male name on the book, I would have thought a woman might have written Dahlia.
Well,
So can
thank
you
you.
talk about her a little bit, a bit?
Yeah, yeah, that means a lot to me. Dahlia is, I've got a huge soft spot for Dahlia. She's a midwife. She's a single mother of two kids, each from a different dad. And she's kind of lonely, but she's also almost too busy to really dwell on her loneliness. She just wants to be a good mum, take her kids to school and make their dinner and things like that. In a way, what I think is extraordinary about Dahlia is she's actually quite normal. She hasn't got like, a lot of main characters have some special talent or, they're extraordinary in some way, but she's extraordinary just from what she does and who she is, just being this single mum and trying her best. And yeah, I think because the book has got so many vignettes in it of all these different people, we don't if you compressed all of the Dahlia pages into one book, it would probably be quite short. So what I have to do is really go into the specifics, really find the real telling details of who she is and how she thinks and why Travis is drawn to her. It's I think about my characters a bit differently to how I think a lot of writers think about their characters because I like my characters. Some writers, when they write a character, they know every single thing about that character. They know what they had for breakfast, what their first pet was, and all this stuff. For me, I like to almost create a portrait that's semi-mysterious to me as well, because I think that makes it somehow deeper because we don't know everything about everybody. It's that it almost gives a feeling that there is way more going on that we don't know about her life, about what she does day to day. Um, I really like subtext. I like the words between the lines. I like the things that we fill in with bits of ourselves, you know. Um, but Dahlia's very special, and yeah, she's a big part of the book. And Travis finds himself just drawn to her, and particularly her daughter Layla.
Claude Debussy said that music is the thing, it is the space between the notes.
Yes, yeah,
And I love that because I think that's true of theater and writing too. I love that because I have a friend who writes thrillers and he's Hitchcock like. Everything is mapped out. And I'm in awe of it because I don't know myself well enough to I make up a character. Like with Travis, I love that you left gaps purposefully because we're sort of learning them as you're learning them. I think E.L. Doctorow said that writing a novel is a bit like driving on a country road late at night with just one headlight.
right. I like
In a
that.
way, it's
Yeah,
almost like improv. You know, you'll receive, okay, he's a painter and he lives in Paris in 1920 and he's out of work. Go.
yep, yep.
And so Travis feels so authentic, as does Dahlia. And it's interesting you say she's not someone with a lot of talents or anything like that. I, I'm almost drawn to her more for her, I don't want to use the word ordinariness because she's not ordinary. And I think that's what you do really beautifully. She's a small person
Yep.
who's who you go very deep and reveal the gorgeousness of it, right? I mean
Yeah.
the the irony of fiction is that when it's done as beautifully as you've done it, there's nothing fictional about it. She's not a superhero or anything like that. She's someone who we know so deeply on the page because it's her interior life. The pain and the struggle and the ultimate beauty of it. And man, I think you did it so annoyingly well as a fellow writer. I'm kind of pissed off, to be perfectly honest with you. Uh, let's see. I'm looking at the time. I could keep talking to you. I'm wondering, Julie, do we bring you back in and see if some of our patient listeners have questions better than my own?
Your question, John, I was just going to say, can you come and do this every week? I
Happy to.
absolutely, you are amazing.
Oh,
Yeah.
one quick thing before we open it up. Only because, as I was saying before the call started, I happen to be sitting in Cape Cod, half a mile from where Kurt Vonnegut lived, and I just could you just speak sort of briefly about the title of the book, Ben?
Yeah, of course. So it's a beloved line. Everything was beautiful and nothing hurt. It's a line that people have already got tattooed on themselves because of that book. So it's quite a big honor and probably a little bit of a creative risk to use it.
No. Yeah.
But I love Vonnegut. I adore him. It's very much I see it as like a tribute to him.
Good.
It's a mysterious line. I remember reading it when I was a lot younger and not really fully knowing what he meant or if he was being sarcastic or ironic or but as I get older, I don't think he did mean it ironically. I think that there is a lens you can view things through, and it's not like a deluded lens, but or even like an overly optimistic lens, but there's a way of seeing the world where actually, in some sense, in some mysterious sense, everything is beautiful. And obviously lots of things hurt, but I don't know. That's why it's so mysterious because there's this real kind of it's kind of not true, but at the same time, if you can kind of feel why it is true. And it was just perfect for this book because it's so much about pain, it's so much about beauty and life. It just fit.
And the double helix that is pain and beauty.
Yeah.
One more brief quote before we open it up that I think sort of might punctuate what you just said. I happened to read a piece in the Atlantic magazine by the writer Alan Lightman. He's a unfairly talented physics professor at Massachusetts Institute of Technology, but he's also a humanities professor. And he wrote this last week. He said, there are far more possible arrangements of human DNA that exist than there are atoms in the observable universe, each arrangement corresponding to a different human being. Each conception contains about 100,000 billion different possible combinations of DNA. In other words, there are 100,000 billion unique and different human beings that could result from each procreation. There will only ever be one you.
Mm.
We're a miracle. This, the time we have is fleeting and it's a pain in the ass, and people just cut us off at Waitrose or took our parking space, or our brother doesn't talk to us, or burn the soup. And if we can close the gap a little bit and say, I'm living a miracle, just a bit, right? It's like being at the eye doctor, better or worse. The acuity is this different. If we can do that, it gets a little more gorgeous. Anyway,
Beautiful. Yeah.
let's hear from our patient listeners.
John, like I said, fantastic. Great,
Yeah.
such a great interview. All right, we do have some questions that have come in. Amy would love to know. She loved that Travis's hobby was photo preservation. She has her own theory on why you chose that hobby, but can you share where that came from for you?
Yeah, I will. Someone else asked me this, and I'd like to keep it a little bit mysterious because you can break something if you explain it too much. But um, I think sometimes when you're writing, you go through a few different ideas in your mind because I knew I wanted him to have some kind of hobby in his downtime. Otherwise, it would just be death, 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 death. I wanted some downtime. And you kind of go through a few in your mind, and sometimes something just clicks, and it's maybe a little bit mysterious why. We know that photos have got connotations of memory and of life and of preservation and of um, cherishing things, and it's almost so many connotations in the idea of photo restoration and preservation. It was just perfect, and I also just really like the idea of him working with his hands, taking a lot of care over something, really dedicating himself to something that it's implied in the book that he does it for free. He just does it for people, and yeah, I think sometimes it just feels right, and I was quite happy that I settled on that.
But there's also that sort of heartbreaking nostalgia of photos, right?
Yeah.
My iPhone does this cruel thing where it will just send me a little 30-second montage of my children at the beach because it heard me say the word beach, and I'm just like sobbing, right? I
Yeah.
mean, I happened to look up because of a thing I'm working on, the word nostalgia, and I believe it's Greek for the ache or the longing to go home again
Mm.
to a place that might not exist. And I loved that that's what he did. Did not mean to butt in there.
Oh,
No,
I love
thank you.
it. I love it. I love your butting in. I love your butting in. Ben, there's a question that I popped into the for you in the chat because I'm not sure if it would be a spoiler or not, so I want you to look at it if you can, just to see if it is.
Yeah,
But
let me have a quick look at that.
because I didn't want to read it out loud, because if it is a little bit of a spoiler, I want to be careful.
Yeah, who is it? Who's it from?
I just popped it to you, I think, to
Oh, okay.
post.
Yeah, let's have a look. Um, what was the?
Down at,
Okay, yeah, yeah. Let me try and answer that in a way. So essentially, there is a sense in the book that Travis maybe takes on different forms. Um, and part of the reason I did that is because I feel like and I'm not going to answer it completely, but if he is death, if he is the Grim Reaper, then he can't only be in this one town. We're just privy to this one town because otherwise the story would be ridiculous. We're almost just seeing a snippet of who he is and where he is. And I think it would make sense that he's maybe if he's in, I don't know, the middle of Africa or, Japan, he's not going to be called Travis and he's not going to look like that. He's sort of, he can adapt himself to whatever he needs to be. We just don't see that because it's not that sort of book. It's not a fantasy book. But I like the idea that maybe every so often he's not called, even in England or in America, he's not called Travis anymore, and he maybe doesn't look like that anymore. And yeah, I think that's just a little quirk of his character.
Yeah, I thought that was one we had to kind of be careful with.
Tried to tread carefully there.
I know. Yes, we thank you for the question, but sometimes it's like, don't want to spoil too much if people haven't read the book. So Lori says a brilliant book and refreshing interview and reading. Ben, are you surprised at the reception to this book, and how is it changing your life?
I am surprised. Obviously, it's something as an unknown writer, something you obviously dream about, and you think, oh, wouldn't it be cool if that happened, and if I got New York Times bestseller and all that stuff. The biggest change it's had on my life, honestly, is I sort of feel like it doesn't feel like it's happening to me. It's wonderful, but it's happening kind of over there. And if anything, it's made my real life kind of go on hold for a bit while this craziness is happening. And I need to find a way to just put it in a box and like it's great and it's wonderful and I love it and I'm glad it's happening, but it's separate and I need to still crack on with all the things that I like doing and need to do. And it's a strange one. It's sort of a bit of a double-edged sword actually, but it's all good.
It's all wonderful.
It's all good.
We're going to get ready to kind of close everything up here. John, I would love to know now, your book just came out in paperback, is what Michael was saying, or now in paperback. What are you working on for us? So you have something new that's coming along the pike?
Well, I just figured people just love books about death. So I thought I would write another book about death. In I see you've called in dead. The main character is an obituary writer, and we learn that a small reason he became an obituary writer is his mother died when he was 12, and her obituary was only 74 words long, and he couldn't understand how that represented that person he knew. Uh, and I was working on another novel last fall and sort of started a slim memoir about my mother, who I stole that from my own life. My mother died when I was 12, and her obituary was 74 words long. I know, where do I come up with the ideas? Um, and so I've written that. So that comes out next year. It's called 74 Words, A Son's Very Late Attempt to Rewrite His Mother's Obituary. And it's a laugh riot. So I'm working on that and a novel, and I'm well into the novel except for sort of a plot or characters or structure. I'm
Just a few things.
Yeah.
Just a few things there.
Ben, I mean, yeah, don't let the fame go to your head. What are you working on next? I'd love to know that.
Yeah, of course. So after writing this, I wrote this one in 2023, and I tend to write about one a year. So I've written another full one, and I'm about 70% of the way through another one. The one I wrote in 2024, you know that bit in Back to the Future where Marty says, I don't think you guys are ready for that yet. I sort of feel that about it. Not that it's so good, it's going to blow your minds, but it's just like it's kind of too different from this one.
Okay.
So I'm writing another one that's a bit closer to this one, but it's like a bridge between Everything Was Beautiful and the weird one. So
Perfect.
yeah, it's good fun.
I love it. And that will show the audience how long it takes to get these books into publication.
Yeah.
It's a very analog process.
Yeah, but we love it. We love it. We love it. Ben, thank you so much for taking the time to come into us today.
Thank you so much for posting it.
Yeah, we adore the book. John, thank you. Excellent,
my pleasure.
excellent interview. Loved it. Again,
My pleasure.
Thank you. Customers.
And congrats to Ben. It's a
Congrats.
beautiful
Thank you, John.
book. I can't recommend it enough. I really can't.
Thank you
It's
so
true.
much, John.
It's true. And thank you, customers of Book Passage, Pages, Rakestraw, and Warwick's, and from wherever you're calling from. We appreciate all of you. So everybody have a great rest of your Saturday. Thanks, everyone.
Take care. Bye.